How you hear me?
Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Education for Tuesday, November 9th. This meeting is now called to order. Mrs. Smith, may we have a roll call, please?
You may. Mr. Rich.
Here.
Dr. Blau.
Here.
Ms. Fox.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Ms. Heinrich.
Here.
I myself here. Ms. Weems.
I am here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have a couple of students here who will lead us in the pledge. Please come to the podium, Savannah and Daisy Thomas. Thank you for leading us in the pledge today. Yes. Just right here, behind that podium. Thank you. We'll start whenever you start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, ladies, for leading us in the pledge. We will now move to items from the president. The first item is approval of the agenda. Mr. Rich?
Yes, thank you. I move that we approve the agenda for today's November 9th, 2021 regular meeting as presented.
Support.
Motion to approve the agenda made by Mr. Rich, supported by Mrs. Smith. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We now have announcements. Welcome to the November 9th Farmington Board of Education regular meeting. The board would like to acknowledge Native American Heritage Month. On August 3rd, 1990, the President of the United States, then George H.W. Bush, approved a joint resolution designating the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month, thereafter commonly referred to as Native American Heritage Month. The Michigan Department of Education is committed to partnership with the Confederation of Michigan Tribal Education Departments through ongoing efforts of MDE's Indigenous Education Initiative. We all benefit from an understanding of our separate and collective histories, from a knowledge of the fullest breadth of history, said State Superintendent Dr. Michael Rice. The social studies resources developed by Michigan's tribal educators bring us closer to that understanding. The resource guide is intentionally focused on the more inclusive social studies standards adopted by the State Board of Education in 2019 that reference tribal nations. FPS has a vision for high achievement for all of its students. Together with our community, we will engage every student in a quality learning experience, empowering each student to become a thoughtful, contributing citizen in a changing world. Please remember to silence all cell phones and electronic devices at this time. In addition, out of courtesy to those in the audience, we ask that you refrain from sidebar conversations and that you step out into the hallway if you feel the need to carry on a conversation. We thank you for your cooperation. For the safety of those in the room that are immunocompromised and to align with the Oakland County masking requirement for staff and students, we ask that all community members wear a mask. If you choose not to wear a mask, we have set up a room down the hall with a large TV screen that will stream this meeting. If you wish to express a public comment, you may return to this room at that time, express your comment, and then return to the viewing room. Public comment request cards are available in the back of the room and in the viewing room. If you would like to speak during public comment, please fill out a card and place it in the ceramic bowl next to Mrs. Buckley at the end of this table. Public comments will be shared after discussion items. This will be the opportunity to share general comments. If the public comment is intended to be critical of or express dissatisfaction with a particular staff member, student, or group, you are encouraged not to identify the person by name. You may request a private meeting with the district representatives or utilize the complaint process found in our policy manual. Generally, board members and the superintendent will not respond to public comments during the board meeting. Issues may be referred to the superintendent for investigation, study, and/or response. A couple of announcements. The Farmington High School has a play called Fright Night, Boo, Scenes from Halloween and Night of the Living Dead, which is November 12th and 13th at 8 p.m. And North Farmington High School has plays as well. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, interesting. That one is November 11th, 12th, and 13th at 7 p.m., and also on the 13th at 1 p.m. We will now move to board goals. At each meeting, the board reviews our goals and our progress toward our goals. We have a total of 4 goals. The first one was with respect to board education, and we are progressing in that goal. As far as immediate terms, we're looking forward to having our full board be certified by the end of this year. All of our board members have been trained in the MASB Superintendent Evaluation Tool, so we've completed that goal. And we are all participating in the 21-day Equity Challenge and hope to complete that by the end of the year. Board goal number 2 is exploring innovation. We have formed a legislative committee. They are scheduled to meet before the end of this year. We are building relationships with school boards, and several of our board members are attending a MASB event over the course of 4 or 5 days. It starts on Wednesday and ends on Sunday. So thank you, board members, for your continued commitment to education and in relationship building with other school boards across the state. We are also focused on increasing student voice, and we're looking forward to recommendations coming out of the Communications and Community Engagement Committee. Board Goal 3 is around executing on our vision and strategy. We have already had board members assigned to each of our strategic planning committees, and we're working on developing a plan to align our policies with our DEI objectives by the end of the year. And then the final one is on community engagement. Our committee is meeting before the end of the year, and we're all continuing to work on attending school district events. And so I would encourage our board members to update the form that's been sent out on the communique every other week with your events so that we can track those. Thank you. I think we're progressing nicely on our goals. With that, we will move to items from the secretary. Mrs. Smith?
The board has received communications regarding Wood Creek Elementary, the 21-day Equity Challenge, the Smart for Kids program, CRT, and North Farmington High School. Communications are acknowledged, and when appropriate, a response is provided. A list of correspondence can be found in the board packet, which is available on the FPS website.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. We will now move to legislative updates. Dr. Blau.
Yes, there was an Oakland County School Board Association Government Relations Committee meeting November 3rd, which I participated in virtually. And there were a couple of interesting items that were mentioned. There are currently 4 voucher bills, tax credit bills, that have been given to the governor, although they will probably be vetoed. There is a Citizens Committee that has organized a petition for a ballot campaign around that issue. So that's something to keep our eyes on. There was this is legislation in process, a decrease or a reduction in the foreign language graduation requirement to allow for a half-credit financial literacy course. Also, very interestingly, and I think this will be very helpful for us as a district moving forward with some of our innovative ideas, there are some House bills in the works around exempting school districts from the current day and hour requirements if we are designated as a public innovative district. So I look forward to finding out more about how that's defined and how a district can go about becoming designated as a public innovative district. There are a couple of other House bills around that as well. So I look forward to sharing more information with you about that as I have it.
Thank you. Very good. Appreciate that update. Dr. Delgado, we will now move to district updates. Would you take us through?
Thank you, President Weems. And first up, we have our recognition. I'd like to invite to the mic, to the podium, teacher Nina Merget and students from the Entrepreneur class. You can stand right behind the podium while I talk about you. I'm sure our Board of Education is going to have some questions for you. So a project-based learning, what we call PBL, assignment in a Farmington High School entrepreneurship class led to students raising $1,070 for pediatric cancer research for the University of Michigan. Students in Nina Merget's class were given the task to raise money for a charity. The class determined that they wanted to raise money for pediatric cancer and wanted it to have an impact locally. Therefore, whatever they raised would be donated to the University of Michigan. Merget facilitated discussions on what they were going to sell, how they were going to advertise it, how much it would cost, and what their profits might be if they sold all of their stock. The class decided to make special edition pink shirts for the Pink Out homecoming football game. Students collaborated to design, physically print, promote, and sell the shirts, which I think we see a wonderful model right here, modeling our FHS. Can you give us a twirl? Fantastic. Mrs. Merget taught students how to create a design using Transfer Express and helped them learn how to use a t-shirt press to physically print each shirt. Shirts were sold by the Entrepreneurship and DECA students for $10 each. Overall, the group sold 200 shirts and made a profit of $1,070, all of which was donated to pediatric cancer research. I'm so proud of my students for going through the entire process to develop, produce, price, and promote a product while raising money for charity, said Mrs. Merget. They worked hard to sell all of their shirts to maximize their donation. And one of the students, Yatin Bachala, said, "I learned that charity is just worth the work, no matter what it is." Yes, and Yatin is here. Yatin went on to say, "It felt similar to community service in that it was selfless and infinitely rewarding. We never once thought about being rewarded. That puts a smile on my face." And I can see you smiling with your eyes. So Farmington Public Schools is delighted to see that our students are contributing to their community, and what a thoughtful and creative idea. So we want to first of all congratulate you and thank you for your work. And I'm sure we would love to hear from each of the students about the experience, as well as Mrs. Merget, and I'm positive our board members have some questions for you. So take it away.
Oh, that's nice.
All right. Wonderful.
There you go.
Any questions, comments from board members? Mrs. Smith?
Thank you, all three of you, for the hard work that you've done. I can see 3 future models on GQ. But I want to say thank you as young men coming forth, helping for not only breast cancer, but for pediatric cancer. I wish I'd have had that idea many moons ago. I'm not going to say my age. But I had a friend that I grew up with all the way through up until elementary and passed of leukemia at the age of 9. So thank you for doing this and helping other children that are not as fortunate as you all are to be able to have a fulfilled life. And this will go and help someone or several students or children in the long run. But I really appreciate all the work you've done. When I get back from Grand Rapids, I'll come over and find me a pink shirt too. I ain't a pink wearer, but I'll come and get me a pink shirt and I'll donate. Thank you.
Dr. Blau?
That was my question, my next question. How can we get a hold of these shirts? And if you don't have any shirts left because they're limited edition, where can we make a donation?
Okay, we do have some limited edition. Are sold out. We're sold out of the pink shirts, but we have more of the fade out.
Awesome. So,
What would be the best option?
We do have some fade out shirts left in medium and extra large. A couple left. These were $15 and the other ones were $10.
because we would love to support what you're doing. So let us know and we'll, I mean, I don't want to speak for all of us. Awesome.
Awesome.
Wonderful work, gentlemen, wonderful work.
I just had a quick question. Who came up with, how did you guys come up with pediatric cancer research as the charity that you wanted to support? How did that come about?
Well, first, we came up with the idea of creating a shirt that we could sell to the other students with breast cancer awareness month. We also have, so we thought it would be a good idea to create a shirt for the football game, but also any proceeds that we go towards pediatric cancer. So we have like a whole team. Everyone does their part. A lot more than just us going in.
Well, thank you for acknowledging them and recognizing them. That's awesome.
Pediatric cancer gets about 1.7 cents of every dollar donated.
Wow.
So that resonated with the breast cancer gets a huge, prostate cancer gets another huge, everything else. 1.7 cents. All pediatric.
That's good to know. I sincerely hope that this project counts towards your community service hours and helps you get your gold cords for graduation. That would be nice.
We can make that happen.
That would be awesome. Thank you for what you're doing for our community. Appreciate it.
I love the way that the falcon is in the ribbon, right on the back of your shirt. Yeah, how the falcon, the Farmington Falcon is in the pink ribbon.
Neat.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah,
One of
yeah.
our students designed that in the Adobe program, so it's all original artwork.
Fabulous.
Great.
All from the students are very talented.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
And I'll keep rolling if that's okay. So next up is the superintendent's district update. So a few comments from me this evening. And again, thank you to all the students for coming, both for our young ladies who did the pledge for us and then for this wonderful recognition. We hope that this is a staple of our board meetings to really highlight the wonderful and altruistic work that's happening with our students in our community. A couple of comments for me. I want to congratulate all of the student athletes as well as our marching band members who participated in the fall, any fall athletic program, both middle and high school, as well as the marching band and some of the traditional fall activities. We were so excited to be able to conduct those safely at all levels. And we understand the importance of activities, especially athletics, that really promote teamwork and sportsmanship. Both individual and team goal setting, as well as a wonderful healthy activity and exercise. So we're getting ready to begin our winter sports, but we still do have a few people left in our fall competition. So just wanted to say good luck to our women's swim and dive teams from both North Farmington and Farmington High School. All told, we have 16 individual swimmers and 2 divers who are still in the state competition. So we wish them well and would look to see them back at a future board meeting to recognize their run in the state championship. Whether you participated in marching band or fall athletics or any of those kind of activities, we hope that you will consider, all of you students, consider participating in clubs or school-based activities or even community groups. We have wonderful connections, things like our Junior Optimist clubs, the Scouts, whether it's part of your faith-based institution. We know that students who are connected to any kind of extracurricular activity just enhances their experience at school and their connection to each other, as well as their academic achievement. The research shows that it goes up the more that you are connected to people and you have that support mechanism. So good luck to everybody moving forward, and just congratulations to those of you who participated in the fall. I also wanted to congratulate the STEAM fall play. Last weekend, they were able to pull off their fall play. You'll recall that the weekend before was East Middle School did their fall play, and President Weems already highlighted North Farmington and Farmington High School opening weekends this weekend. North has the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. And then obviously we have the Fright Night activities at Farmington High School. So again, we're so excited to have students on stage doing this safely with socially distanced audiences and being able to pull this off at our schools. The other thing I want to highlight is the wonderful work that is a longstanding tradition in our community. The Farmington Area Goodfellows Canned Food Drive has begun November 1st through 23rd. It's accepted at all of our Farmington's public schools, as well as the city halls, the Farmington Public Library, and the Caustic Center. So it's a longstanding tradition of giving and support for our community, and I would encourage all of us to help participate in that as well. And then two final updates from me. I had yet another meeting today with all of the Oakland County Superintendents and the Oakland County Health Department. We meet weekly to monitor the COVID cases and look at where the next steps are. The topic of discussion today really was the rollout of the vaccination clinics. They have asked us, Farmington, to be a regional hub. North Farmington High School is one of the hubs that will be rolling out vaccines for students, for children ages 5 through 11. The first one went off without a hitch, I believe last night or the night before at Hazel Park, and was absolutely sold out, even though it's free. And so we are doing our part to try to participate and support the vaccination in our community. The Oakland County Health Department is really optimistic that the sooner that we have our young people vaccinated, the sooner we'll be able to slow the transmission rate, get us to that yellow color, which would allow us to have optional masking and kind of rescind some of these mitigation strategies. So we're going to do our part. We're going to continue to do our part, and pleased that North Farmington was willing to help out with that. And then finally, you may have heard that there was a federal order regarding the vaccination requirements for employees. It's still premature to know how or if that's going to impact schools. It is currently tied up in court. We hope to get a ruling within the next day or so. Essentially, the order states that any business, it's labeled a business, even though we're not a business, we're governed by OSHA. Anyone with 100 employees or more would be required to have vaccinations or do COVID testing. And so we are prepared to comply. Of course, we'll work with our associations to make that happen, should that be the ruling, that public schools are not exempt from this. And the good news is there are other districts, DPS is one of the big ones, and many other districts around the state who have already begun doing this, so we won't have to reinvent the wheel should we move that way. So I know that might have been top of mind for some people. So we are in Farmington having conversations about that, making preparatory steps, and we're just awaiting the final decision. And that is all I have for this evening.
Thank you. Next, we have our PTA Council update. Mrs. Hewlett. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here today to give you an update on the council and the units, so I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And the last time that we gave you an update, we were learning remotely, and we were in the midst of the pandemic, and we still are. But what we learned during that time is that PTA doesn't stop during a pandemic. And if anything, we've learned that our 15 local units and our PTA Council can function, and PTA is now a verb, can do that without a school building. And that is so important. And so that is the way that we've been connecting with our families. So I wanted to tell you just a sort of a general overview of what some of our local units are doing. And then I'm going to call up some local superstars from one of our units. So over the last year in the pandemic, and especially since we met last, Our units have found new and creative ways to support our families and our teachers. They've attended local training sessions, and when I say local, I mean virtual, held with the local council, through the PTA Council and even the 103rd Annual Michigan PTA Virtual Convention in some cases. They've donated raffle baskets to the Ed Foundation's Toast to Education, and they've been able to create safe ways to engage families, and they are simply amazing. So to hear some of that firsthand, I would like to bring up from North Farmington PTSA, Truman Jagdev and Ronnie Demon. And they're going to tell you just a little bit about only some of what they are working on. Come on up, at North Farmington.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Truman Jagdev, and I am North Farmington PTSA President, and I am really happy to be here tonight to give you an update on what we are working on North Farmington. But before I do that, I want to say, we are a whole village that we are working, so we are thankful to both our high school principals, Mr. Green and Mr. Sheldon, our Farmington High School PTA President, Tammy, Schools Advisor Natalie, our very own Beth Hewlett, Jen Garland, and our Enrichment VP, Nancy Jennings, who is also our PTSA Vice President at North Farmington. But last but not the least is a heartfelt thank you to all of our 343 PTSA members this year. So when the PTSA was, our North Farmington PTA was started in year 2013, we had only 13 PTSA members, so you can see the increase in number. How we did is, we started focusing on our PTSA membership this year, and we have added alumni membership. So if anyone is an alumni, or if you have any members, please become our PTSA member. We also started membership donations, sponsorship for students and staff at North Farmington. And what we also did was we started, kickstarted our membership drive with inter-school membership competition between Farmington High and North Farmington. I'm sure everyone has seen Mr. Green's picture wearing a Falcon jersey. So what we did was both the schools had significant increase in their membership. And hopefully next year, Mr. Shelton gets to wear gold and brown. So that was our membership drive. The next program that we started this year is Raiders United. What we are doing is we are bringing all of our North Farmington clubs, booster groups, enrichment activities together and increase communication among us. As an example of this increased communication among our groups, what resulted was the North Farmington football players honoring their teachers before the homecoming game by giving them their jerseys and handwritten notes of the appreciation for them. So that was another thing that we did. We are also working on our recognition for National School of Excellence. So hopefully next year we should be getting that designation. Another program we started is the Student Leadership Program. And last year we were lucky to see how Farmington High School has done Student Leadership Program. And they were able to help us out in many ways. And this is a great opportunity that we are making it available for all North students. By becoming PTSA member and volunteering, these students will qualify for local, state, or national scholarships. And important part of this program is that students can pick and choose the events according to their availability. Rani Dhiman is our North Farmington PTSA Student Committee Chair, and she's going to talk to you about the Student Leadership Program now. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rani Dhiman, and I'm a junior at North Farmington High School. It is no surprise that last year it was extremely tough altogether with the pandemic, but I got the opportunity to attend the Farmington High School program for the PTSA student leaders, and I brought the same opportunity to North. And a few programs that we have been going over were, our first program was our monthly appreciation pantry, which consists of parents bringing in snacks and drinks and students writing notes and letters of gratitude to show our appreciation for their hard work through this pandemic. And additionally, we are also working on a mental wellness campaign, which is in accordance with the Farmington High School PTSA, Farmington Empowered, and the North Farmington Student Senate. Social media, while creating connections, it really doesn't offer opportunities to deal with the stress and strain faced by many of our students, and we want to give them an opportunity to discuss their problems. And so we have decided to start fundraising to provide resources for our students and our school staff. With the theme TRUST, an acronym for Together, Reset, Upgrade, Support, and Transform. Finally, the last program we've established is our Farmington Area Club for Esports. This club is available to all high school members in Farmington, North Farmington, and Farmington Central. And we have started competing in varsity and club level in Valorant with other Michigan high schools in the Michigan High School Esports Federation. 2 of our teams are currently in the top 3 of their respective categories in varsity and club, and our 22 students have been able to build relationships with each other both online and in person, develop teamwork skills and leadership skills. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's awesome.
All right.
Thank you. So they're amazing, and so they're very humble also. So they didn't even mention many of the things that they do, but Truman mentioned in passing the opportunity for scholarships for our student leaders. So for instance, Ronnie, when she is graduating, she would be eligible to apply for a scholarship through the PTA Council. And shameless plug, we do take donations for the student scholarships, and if anybody's interested in donating to that, any amount is amazing, and you can find that on our website at farmingtonareaptacouncil.org, and it goes to kids like Ronnie that are doing these fantastic things for their community. Another thing that I just wanted to quickly mention too, because Truman is really humble. So I had a local unit come to me and say, we are struggling with connecting with our Indian population. We really want to find a way to communicate with them, and we're not really sure how to go about that. When we talked to Truman, by that night, she had translated documents for the PTA for them to use to distribute in her native language. And so those are the types of things that we need to keep building on, and I am so grateful for Truman for doing that, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So I also just wanted to quickly mention that the PTA Council has been awarded another grant from the FAIR organization, which is Food Allergy Research Education. And this is the second time we've been awarded that grant. This time we will be partnering with our high school student leaders in Farmington Empowered, and they will be reading virtually books to the younger students that have to do with living with a food allergy and being a friend to someone with a food allergy. So we're really looking forward to that. This partnership that we've established with FAIR has also resulted in the organization contacting Farmington and asking us for parent voice to meet with their advocates who work with Congress on legislation having to do with food allergy. So we were really happy to be able to be a part of that meeting with them. And that's something they're still working on. So also we finished up another great grant that was supported by Farmington Hills Foundation for Youth and Family and the Youth Assistance. And that was a grant that was called Mirrors and Windows Reflective Art Kit Program. And it was a program that centered on the Colors of the World products by Crayola. And we gave out these free kits, and I think we gave out about 150 of them, and we're really grateful for their support in that. And also in closing, I mentioned briefly Farmington Empowered. Farmington Empowered has been around for many years, and it's a student-led anti-bullying initiative. We have now taken that under the umbrella of PTA Council. So please be on the lookout for that. The color that they are known for is purple. The first Friday of every month is Purple Out. So we hope that you'll join us in wearing purple and sharing your photos on social media. So thank you. Thanks for having us. We appreciate that.
Thank you. We appreciate you. just on behalf of the board, thank you, Mrs. Hewlett, thank you, Treeman and Ronnie, for coming to speak with us. I'm very interested to hear all of the new programming that's coming up. I really appreciate the student-led activities, especially coming from a junior. Great job, great job. Thank you. We can now move on, Dr. Delgado, to the strategic plan update.
Yep, thank you, President Weems. And we have one more district update. It's my pleasure to introduce our wonderful Assistant Superintendent of Strategic Initiatives and Innovation, Dr. Kelly Coffin, to present our strategic plan update. As I mentioned before with the board, we have a vision this year at the board meetings of alternating between board meetings and doing innovative presentations on one board meeting, as well as strategic plan updates of the 8 goal areas, which will take us through our school year. So we're very, very excited about this first strategic plan subcommittee update. Dr. Coffin.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Delgado. Good evening, Board of Education. Very excited to be here, as Dr. Delgado mentioned, to really start to share progress that's happening in each of our goal areas. So as you're aware, there are 8 different goal areas. So this is the first of those 8 goal updates that we'll have throughout the school year. So just wanted to first give a shout out to our leadership in the goal area of community relations. Tonight you're going to hear from Jackie Meyer and Kendra Montante, and the co-chair, the administrative rep, is Chris Solomon. She unfortunately couldn't be here because we have elementary conferences tonight. So she worked with Jackie and Kendra to pull this together. So just wanted to make sure her work is recognized as well. So you don't really need to hear from me or want to. You probably more want to hear from those doing the work. So Jackie and Kendra, if you want to come up.
Great, thank you. I am Jackie Meyer. I'm a 7th grade math teacher at Power. I'm also a community member and a parent of FPS children. My kids are at Power in Farmington right now.
And my name is Kendra Montante. I work in the communications department of the school district, and I'm a communications specialist.
Great. So our committee is comprised of some awesome community members, a wide variety of stakeholders. We have parents, we have community members that are not parents, we have administrators, cabinet members. Recently, Ms. Smith and Mr. Walker joined, and we're so happy to have you. And so we have really great voice in our committee. And when we began last spring, we just started asking open-ended questions, and we just listened and took notes. And so we started by asking what the successes and challenges were of community relations, and we started to hear some common themes, and that's how we developed our objectives. Do you know how to click? Okay. Thank you. So our first objective is to improve communication and outreach with stakeholders. We learned that sometimes there has been moments of under-communication and other times moments of over-communication. And sometimes parents aren't aware of programs or students aren't aware of programs and opportunities. And so we want to just help improve that. So what we're currently doing is creating surveys for various community groups. Right now, we are working on a survey for new families, so that can be a family, a kindergarten family, or even a 12th grader coming in for all new families to learn how the process has gone so far this year, to just get their feedback and learn ways that we can improve their transition to Farmington. And then from there, we're going to be developing surveys for existing families, for seniors within our community, and also other community members that don't have children in Farmington Public Schools. Oh, I went too far.
So the second objective that emerged over time was that we have all these amazing partnerships and enrichments that we offer our students, but that we need a centralized place for those to be held. So one of the things that we talked about is how can we determine who our current partnerships are and determine, do we need to grow those current partnerships? Do we need to find some new partnerships? And how can they benefit our students, basically? So we've just recently started creating a database for the district, and we've asked some of the secretaries in the school district to provide their input and feedback. And we've already given it to our principals, I believe, and they have given some feedback as well. And then our team, our committee, has also participated as well in providing feedback as well. We've just kind of started working on that. We've been focusing more on the survey at the current moment. But a couple of things that emerged, as you'll see, is increasing the number of partnerships that we have, increasing the minority and female-owned partnerships that we have, are two-way partnerships. So one of the things that came out of some of the conversation that we've had is that sometimes we have partners that just give to us, and we want to figure out ways that we can give back. Because our students do, and often do give back, as you heard earlier this evening, right? So it's how can we form those partnerships and make them impact our community. And the next one is a partners event. It's bringing all those partners together and connecting them, realizing that there is this much bigger picture that they're a part of, and showing them that look at the amazing things that you're doing to help us with these wonderful students. So that's the second objective. Our future work. So we're working on a variety of different things. One of them is to improve the communication and outreach with stakeholders. So through the surveys that we will be distributing, we're going to obviously garner some information from that. And we're going to look at some of the tools that we currently utilize in-house and methods, and figure out how can we change some of the communication methods that we're currently using. What do we need to update? What needs to stay the same? What's working and what's not working? And move forward through that. And then determining a point of contact in the district for all of our partnerships. Currently, we don't have one point of contact. We have many, right? Principals manage that, secretaries manage that, administration. So we're trying to figure out one point of contact so that at least that person will have the knowledge with the database to know kind of what's happening district-wide. And then Jackie's going to handle the last.
And finally, to continue with outreach efforts, we want to contact our current partners, see if they're happy in the current relationship they have, if they're willing to expand, and also to contact potential partners in our educating our children to just continue to bring more resources to our students. So now we also have some community members with us that are going to share from their perspective that are part of the committee. So we're going to have Ashley Smith come up, as well as, because she is here as well, Beth Hewlett is also part of our committee, so they are both going to speak and share their perspective.
I can go first. Hi there, my name is Ashley Smith. So some of you may know me if you've ever been to the Farmington Hills Nature Center. Have you ever been there before, anyone? I hope so. So I'm the supervisor there at the Nature Center. In addition to having worked there for almost 11 years, I also have 2 young children and an active community member within the city of Farmington Hills. I live here as well. And so just to share my experience from serving on the Community Relations Committee, and I also help with the Teaching and Learning Committee as well, is that it's just really been a wonderful opportunity to serve on that committee and really have our voices be heard in a very productive and meaningful way. So during the meetings that we've had, everything has been really well organized, and I feel that folks have had an adequate opportunity to have their voices heard. And the folks that are in our committee come from all different backgrounds. So they come with a variety of perspectives that I think are really valuable, especially when it comes to improving the community relations with the Farmington Hills Public Schools, Farmington Hills Public Schools. So that's where I come into it with my perspective, is that of a community partner with the Nature Center. We work with the schools on a regular basis. We just had second graders there today doing a field trip, which was really exciting. And then with my young kids, that as a new family perspective to the district as well. So, thanks.
Again, my name is Beth Hewlett, and just to give a quick perspective, as far as my participation on the committee, I am a parent, and believe it or not, not all PTA leaders are parents in the district right now. They may have older children, but we have several parents who still stay and work for the district. So I'm a parent in addition to being a PTA leader and partner with the district. And before that, I was a community member, and I will be part of that 70% again when my second child graduates this year. And so I appreciate being able to give my perspective as a parent who's at this point in our educational journey, but also realizing and considering what it is that we will need as we go forward out of the district this year as my son graduates. The communication portion is just so critical. Two-way communication is really the most important part of it, right? And so I agree. We have had opportunity to have our voice heard. There's been a lot of discussion around different aspects, and everyone is given an opportunity to speak. I believe that there is still room on the committee, and so I have still been encouraging people to come and have your voice be heard. These meetings are only 1 hour, and they honor our time by starting and ending on time, and it's approximately one time a month, probably for the next, my guess is 6 months. So that's for the communication portion. As far as that community engagement and family engagement, that is especially critical also. Research shows that there's a significant benefit to having your family engaged in your students' education, as well as the community. So I think that we're on the right track, and I'm looking forward to see where we go from here. Thank you.
I just also wanted to mention that Tryman is also, we didn't know she was going to be here. She's also on our committee, another wonderful committee member. So we have several here this evening.
And we did have student voice, I forgot this part.
Yes.
Graduated, so we're trying to bring in some students so that we have their perspective as well.
That's great. I think we've got some questions from our board members, Mrs. Fox, and then Mr. Rich.
Yes, I was just wondering, what types of partnerships are you thinking about?
It's all across the board, so it can be mentors, it can be sometimes financial partnerships. For instance, GLP Financial donated calculators to Power this year. It can be coming into the classroom to share for Career Day. So just everything is what we're trying to gather right now.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, Mrs. Fox. So what we found out is that we have some partners that work with some of our schools. And so as we started to have a conversation around that is how do we get that access to everyone? How do we get this into the hands of our counselors who are trying to help our students as they walk down that career pathway to figure that out? So our goal right now is to identify businesses and not, I think as was mentioned, not just what they can do for us, but what we can do for them. And we just need to hear from them. Some might want to be a guest speaker, some maybe allow for a building tour or a visit of their business, but really just being respectful in how we can communicate and really opening that door to our communities. And I know last year through these conversations, we did have students who said, we will go and we'll go talk to our business partners and really talk to them about how important they are for us.
Thank you. Mr. Rich?
Thank you. It's no questions, just a comment on this. Building these partnerships with parents, students, businesses, that is that whole community-based mindset of what we want Farmington Public Schools to be, right? It's not just a school district that exists in its own space, right? We are part of a community, and so having that engagement is extremely important. It's fantastic to see. I look forward to seeing what the continued outcome is once we build up that database and start to get more people added to it.
Mr. Walker and then Mrs. Smith.
Just wanted to continue the compliments on the quality of the leadership of this committee especially. Thank you for allowing me to participate. Dr. Coffin, the leadership that you're exempling for all of the committees and all of this work as part of the strategic plan, I think is absolutely phenomenal. And I think and I might be biased, but this particular committee is probably the most important one if we had to throw a ranking in here some kind of way, because we have to rebuild trust. We have to connect, and we need to be informed in terms of how we provide our customer service back to our customers, being the students and the families. So I think your work is absolutely critical, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job in your approach to it. This committee, coupled with what we're doing with our equity audit and the communication and community engagement elements that are being lifted up out of that, is really informing what the boards committee is doing. So we are going to steal, we are going to piggyback and off of what you're doing. No sense in reinventing the wheel, but thank you to you and to everybody who is serving on that committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and Mr. Walker, I would echo in the parents here who spoke and those they represent. We wouldn't be in this place if it wasn't for the honest conversations. And they really, not just the three that are here, but everybody that serves on that committee is truly here to help Farmington be the best we can be. And that is what we are so grateful for.
Mrs. Smith?
Dr. Coffin and the two wonderful women that stand before you, I am humbled to be asked to serve on that strategic committee with the communications. Communication is the key. We have to have more than one side. You know, as my grandfather used to say, you were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth, not 2 mouths and 1 ear. And we have to be diligent and hear what the community wants to hear. They have to tell us what they want. We have to tell them what we want and what we expect, and our expectations from them as well as their expectations from us. The people that you have, the genre of the dynamics of the group that you have. I mean, I sat in the group with Ms. Smith, no relation. I was impressed, and as you all know, I don't impress easily. But to hear her and her conversations, I had to take a step back and not be the vocal one, and let me hear from a parent from this community that have younger children and know what their needs and wants are and what they have been satisfied with through this community. Continue to do what you're doing. All four of you, minus, Chris, which I'm sorry she couldn't be here. But this is, again, MVP, top notch, and it shows through you all that we're doing the right thing in this community. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'm especially pleased to hear from members of our community who came out today. Thank you, Mrs. Smith, and thank you, Treeman and Beth in the back. I really appreciate hearing the perspectives and the voices of our community and future students. I'm really pleased to hear that as well, and I'm really happy to hear that members of our community feel that their voices are being heard and appreciate this opportunity and are using it. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate that.
Yes, and thank you. And I know you guys have busy lives too, so feel free.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now ready to move into reports, I believe, from board committees. The first is the Finance and Facilities Committee.
Yes, that would be me. The Finance Facilities Committee met on November 5th with Mr. Walker and Ms. Weems, and also members of the cabinet, and also our Plant Moraine Carissa. And anyways, we talked about bid pack number 4 as a discussion item, and so they are going to give us information on that. The other thing we talked about, Dr. Delgado talked to the committee about a follow-up on the program relocation. He took the central office management team to tour the Maxfield Center, the Visions, and Farmington Community School, and just shared with us some of the things that are in the works. They're talking about having a centralized enrollment center here at the Maxfield Center, and looking down the road for Visions Unlimited because of the constraints in sizes and the future needs. So good work being done. Another thing we talked about was the fund balance, and just the fact that right now the board policy states that we have a target of 8 to 12% fund balance. Anything below 5%, then the state has to step in for control, and in order to function without borrowing, the district needs 10%. And so there was input as far as what the state recommends and things like that. So the committee is going to look at the policy revision, and that will be up for discussion at the November 23rd.
Mrs. Heinrich. Mr. Rich, will you take us through the policy meeting?
Yes, so we met yesterday afternoon. It was myself, Ms. Fox, Ms. Smith, as well as Dr. Delgado and Ms. Buckley. So we looked at policy updates from Miller Johnson that were first issued in June 2021 as potential things that we can look at for updates to our policy. So there is some remote work verbiage to policy 4003, which will be discussed later tonight under discussion items. There was a policy list review. Now this list was created back in November 2019. And then, a lot of things happened over the last year and a half that had us focus on other things. And so we wanted to make sure that we did go back through that list and see what was still relevant, what did we see as top priorities, what were things that we wanted to fully address. And many of the items on the list were already addressed in the Positive Culture Handbook. Dr. Delgado is currently working on determining the necessity for policy with regards to when students are receiving a D or F grade. And so what are we doing to make sure that an action plan is being created for correction and making sure that we are notifying parents or guardians prior to a student receiving those grades so that we can do whatever we can to make sure that that is not what their final grade is, and having a policy that would allow us to make sure that people are made aware and it's not something that just is flying under the radar or falling through the cracks. Other things discussed included student representation on the Board of Education that's being talked about with the Community Engagement Committee. And then we have some future policy work looking into district initiatives that need to be moved forward and set expectations. And so Dr. Delgado is leading that discussion for our next board retreat on December 11th, because we figured we need to, instead of having that policy list from November 2019, it's better to get an idea from the whole board as to what do we see as policies that might need to come forward, and also at the same time not adding unnecessary policies just because we don't have something else on that agenda. Next, we discussed the fund balance, as Ms. Heinrich said, and was able to discuss. We also discussed the organizational meetings. That's the timing of that meeting. Currently, this meeting occurs in June, as members of the board know, and just so members of the public know as well. It was proposed a while back to move this meeting to the month of January for the future in order to align with the election of new board members. When this was brought forward last time, there were board members who have since changed how they might feel as to how and when those appointments occur. And so this is going to be brought to the full board for discussion at the November 23rd meeting to discuss further as to whether we want to move the organizational meeting to January. Other items that were brought forward for the initial agenda were tabled for future meetings. And that was all.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. We can move on to discussion items. There are 3 discussion items. The first one is related to the Farmington Public Schools bid pack number 4. This item was discussed in detail at the Finance and Facilities meeting. And so all members of that committee are familiar with that topic, but if there is someone who has oh, there we go. Here's our team. Thank you.
Good evening, board members, President Weems, and Superintendent Delgado. John Barth, Director of Operations. Real quick, this bond project has been wonderful since I've been here, 6 months in, and I'm really enjoying what's happening with the district and seeing things. I started in Farmington. I love to see things going forward like it is. That being said, I have two individuals with me tonight, as you've been through this before, but I have Scott Smith from Plant Moran Cressa with me. He'll be speaking. Also, from McCarthy, we have Aaron Phillips. And I just want to say before I go any further that these gentlemen are probably the most efficient, excellent, collaborative, well-spoken, forward-thinking individuals I've ever worked with. I've been on 6 bonds in my career. You've got the best team here that I could have ever put together if I was to do it myself. So that being said, I'm going to introduce Scott Smith. He'll go through some of the financials, some of the background of this, and then Aaron will take you through the bid. It was an exceptional bid. We had 79 bids submitted, which is quite a large amount for this environment right now. They'll take you through the process, but we're ready to move forward with this with your blessing. This is for bid pack 4. It's for Hillside, Longacre, and Wood Creek in the summer of next year, and some site work at East Middle School. So that being said, Scott?
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be back in front of you. It's been a while, and some of you are meeting for the first time. So I'll go introduce myself real quick, but I'm Scott Smith. I am with Plant Moran Cressa. I'm one of our team members here that's been working on the 2020 bond, but also for me personally, I go back to the 2015 bond and working through all the various buildings there. As John mentioned, this is for our bid pack 4. This is our second recommendation as part of our phase 2 work for work plan for next year, including the schools at Hillside, Longacre, Wood Creek, and just a little bit of site work over at East Middle School. This is a process we started back in, I would say, the latter part of March, walking on site, reviewing bond scope. We're certainly appreciative of everyone's time at the district to meet. There's been various meetings. We've walked on site. We've conducted more meetings. We've estimated projects, again, with the bond scope in mind, with the needs of the school in mind, ultimately solidifying to a point where we put this project out for bids on September the 21st. We took bids approximately 1 month later in the latter part of October. We did extend the date about 5 days for a half dozen bid categories where we were a little bit light in coverage, and we're hoping to achieve a few more bids, which we're able to do in most categories. So again, I won't go into too many details. I'll let Aaron from McCarthy and Smith do that, but we had a very successful bid. Just in terms of real numbers, we're going to be recommending $6,668,205 in hard construction costs and another $666,821 in construction contingency for a total recommendation of $7,335,026. Again, very successful. We're going to be recommending 7 bid alternates that Aaron will go into detail on. We're approximately 10% under our budget, which in this economy is no small task. I attribute it to the project team. We got out early. You know, there are a lot of school districts that are still designing work and will still be. We're out in front of a lot of them, and I think the McCarthy and Smith's team did a great job soliciting good coverage. We got great coverage where it really mattered and where we're at today. So without that, I will turn it over to Aaron Phillips from McCarthy and Smith.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, John. Good evening, Dr. Delgado, President Weems, Board of Education. It's good to be here again. I'm Aaron Phillips with McCarthy and Smith, ready to present to you tonight. So, as Scott alluded and John, bid package number 4, great bidder turnout. This is a really wild and crazy market right now in construction. So, it's a lot of calling, solicitation, driving to companies saying, this is a great project to bid our work, bid our work, bid our work. The bigger funnel, we think of bids as funnels. A big funnel means more competitive bids. That translates into more competitive bids and better costs for us as a district, right? So having said that, so we had 79 total bids. The bids range from about $6.2 million to $8.5 million, so a pretty large spread there, which is what we like to see. The base bid equaled approximately about $6.4 million. There were 7 alternates And when you think about alternates, those are kind of like options that we consider as a project team. Depending upon the favorability of the bids, along with the project needs, those are considered. So we had 7 alternates with this bid package. There were several at Hillside Elementary School. There was a West Play Pad, the art room renovation, an island pavement. So if you've ever been to Hillside Elementary School, there's some small asphalt islands in the parking lot that, after meeting with Principal Kaufman, it was a safety concern, so that was taken into account from a design perspective, as well as a kitchen. It's a HVAC, it's a makeup air unit. It goes in the kitchen workings of the HVAC unit. There were 2 at Longacre, cafe and gymnasium HVAC work, and also a kitchen makeup air unit as well there too. So life cycles of mechanical equipment that's taken into account. And then as well, topping off the alternates, the emergency generator at Wood Creek Elementary School. It's nearing the end of its life cycle. All of the kind of a general theme through the course of this 2020 bond program is a lot of the infrastructure improvements needed for the longevity of the HVAC and mechanical systems. This is one of the items. Several of the schools are getting new emergency generators. Wood Creek it's starting to see some issues with it, so this was considered as a bid alternate, which ultimately we are proposing on accepting all of bid alternates as they were bid. Bids were very favorable, with 79 bids. So we are recommending all of them. So the total hard cost recommendation, as Scott alluded to earlier, is $6,668,205, which is approximately, in terms of construction cost, approximately $748,000 under budget, which is a great win. So,
Are there any questions or comments from board members? Mr. Ridge?
Just one question. I know with everything that's been going on, supply chain, all things like that, that, materials, prices go up and things are a lot harder to find right now. Just for our own knowledge, sometimes, and we'll see this a lot sometimes, that second bidders are the ones that get chosen because there was an estimating error from the first bid or the lowest bidder. What leads to, in this case, a 23% error in estimation?
Sure. So one thing we do during so we interview all bidders, right? So it's not, at the end of the day, it's not always the low guy, right? So we conduct what's called post-bid interviews. It's a thorough meeting with the contractor, the architect, we as the construction manager, Plant Moran Cressa, and Mr. Barth and his team, and we go through the project in great detail. Through the course of vetting those contractors, sometimes it's realized, oops, I missed that, or I missed this, or I didn't see that on the drawing, or this was vague, and there's an error made. They're humans just like all of us in this room. Errors can happen in a bid. Having said that, typically it's a letter asking to withdraw their bid based on an estimating error. If the hand was forced to use them, which would be a mistake, they're behind the ball already fiscally, right? So we're not encouraging partnering up with a trade contractor that's already behind the 8 ball. I can tell you from personal experience, some of the best contractors out there have made mistakes, and you hate to see that. Something as simple as entering in a digit wrong on their final quote sheet, which it's like, how does that happen? It does. So we do consider at submission of a bond, contractors are required to submit a bid bond or a bid security saying, hey, if I'm accepting, if my bid is accepted, I won't back out. Very rarely, and this question came up a couple years ago, I think, but very rarely would we as a construction manager pursue legal action on that bid security, simply because your legal fees, et cetera, would outweigh there's extenuating circumstances which that could certainly happen, so that's not out of the question, but on a simple mistake like this, And we want to encourage them to bid again.
Right.
You know, that's part of the big picture story there. So hopefully that helps
Yeah,
clear.
definitely,
clear
because
things.
I understand, you know, sometimes, you know, like you said, it's putting a digit in incorrect when typing it into either a calculator, Excel sheet, or just when you're typing up the bid itself. I know that other times, you know, we have one instance here where it's the third low bidder, mainly because scope of work, and we want to make sure that everything that we are asking for gets done, and so that they aren't calculating that in those areas. I think it's great to see the thoroughness of, you know, not only going through the bids, but then these post-bid interviews, making sure that, I know we've had instances with transportation, as many people know, where we went with using a bus contract that maybe the buses weren't the cheapest, but since we had the tools to use those buses instead of others, in the long run, it would save us money. And those kinds of things are, you know, what you end up doing with these post-bid interviews. It's really good to see that kind of thoroughness from the team. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Smith, and then Mr. Walker.
Well, good evening, Aaron. How are you? And
Doing
how are
well.
you, Mr. Smith? Also no relation. That name Smith is real common these days, huh? Couple of questions, and if you don't mind, it's regarding generators. And I guess why I'm bringing this up is because of the weather that we've had this summer. And let's hope we don't have these storms over the wintertime and mess with these generators. The life expectancy of a generator, how long is that for one of our buildings?
If well-maintained, it'll vary, and I'm certainly not a generator rep, but anywhere from 20, 25 years plus should give you, a typical life expectancy of mechanical equipment is around that age.
Second question around the generator. The warranty, how long is the warranty?
There's a 2-year standard warranty with all of our projects, but a lot of times there's extended warranties with mechanical equipment that cover specialty parts and equipment within that generator itself.
Okay, third question about the generator. When we replace and put generators in, just let's say hypothetically we have a storm. Will that cover the whole building or just parts of the building, or will it be a brownout? As you see, I know about generators.
Yeah.
So will we have a brownout in certain areas, or will we not have any electricity going to some rooms, or will it cover the whole school itself?
That's a great question. So typically in an environment where you have a brownout or a power loss, there's what's called an automatic transfer switch. So if there's a power interruption, that generator is gonna fire on, and it's power is gonna be sent to the circuitry that's wired to it. So for the schools in Farmington, it's life safety, so it's emergency lighting throughout your hallways, emergency lighting in your classrooms and all occupied areas, along with some infrastructure. So it's gonna have the boilers on, it's gonna have your sump pumps on. By no means is your school going to be operating under normal circumstances. You'd still need to make accommodations to vacate school during that time, but it's going to keep the building warm and safe during the time of that power outage, so you don't have any flooding, you don't have anything that is, affects by power outages itself.
You answered all the other questions, the sump pump and all that other stuff, so we're good. Thank you, and thank you for all that all of you do. I enjoy, from day one working with you guys, it has been a pleasure. So thank you, and thank you for all that you've done for our
Thank you.
schools.
Mr. Walker, and then Mrs. Heinrich.
Actually, I was going to ask questions about the generator, but they've already been asked very thoroughly. So just want to say thank you for your stewardship over this bid pack.
Thank you.
Mrs. Heinrich?
Yeah, I just wanted to, preparing for this meeting, I was just appreciate Mr. Barth's comments, because I just am learning so much about these bid packs, and I've been so impressed with Plant Moraine Cressa and McCarthy Smith as far as their thoroughness and attention to detail. So it just is nice to have that confirmation. It's appropriate that we had the goal committee for community relations, just because, just looking at, this is just bid pack number 4, $7 million project, and it's just appreciation to our community for providing these bonds so that we can have this work done, and just learning that this is just such important work. I mean, it's just our learning about school finances as far as funding and, you know, maintenance and preserving and maintaining our buildings and our facilities. So just recognizing the community for investing in this and the work that you're doing. So thank you very much for everything.
Thank you.
Mrs. Fox?
Yes, thank you. I see that there are quite a few vendors that are part of this packet. Can you tell me if there are any female or minority vendors that is a part of this packet?
I don't know off the top of my head, but if you'll give me a day or two, may I dig into that, and is it okay to email you those?
Yes, I would appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. I'm
I will.
Mabel Fox.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So the Finance Committee, Finance and Facilities Committee had a more in-depth discussion about this bid packet. I wanted to also echo a lot of what I've heard from my board members in terms of the thanks and appreciation to Mr. Barth, also the business office, and McCarthy and Smith and Plantmer and Cressa. I appreciate you both. I really appreciate the fact that you are ensuring that we get competitive bids. That is extremely important in this market. And I'm thoroughly surprised and pleased that we are under budget. We continue to be under budget, and that is a testament to everyone who has been working on the project. So thank you for that. We also did talk about specifically all of the alternates. I wanted to make mention to my fellow board members that we talk about those each time. We want to understand where they're coming from. We want to understand what the building leadership recommends for their buildings. We have specific conversations about equity around and across buildings, about which buildings are getting what and why one and not the other, and so forth and so on. So I just wanted to make those comments ahead of this coming back to us tonight as an action item. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your trust.
At this time, we can move to our next discussion item, which is the summer tax collection resolution. Dr. Delgado?
Thank you, President Weems, and we have our wonderful Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Mrs. Kaminsky.
All right, good evening. So annually, the Board of Education is presented with a resolution regarding the collection of property taxes, which must be decided by December 31st each year. So Farmington has always collected its property taxes by levying 50% in the summer and 50% in the winter. The timing of the collection doesn't affect the amount of taxes that we collect. However, it does impact our cash flow, which requires us to maintain a higher fund balance level in order to avoid borrowing. So based upon our current level of fund balance, I am recommending that we continue to levy 50% of the property taxes in the summer and 50% in the winter, and that the Board of Education approve the summer tax collection resolution at the November 23rd board meeting and waive the reading of the resolution. And I can answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Mrs. Fox?
Thank you. How long have we been in this position of half in the winter and half in the summer?
We have always levied 50-50, so we would have to essentially change some school districts levy all of their taxes in the summer. So it's 100% summer tax collection. That obviously, accelerates your property tax payment. And so homeowners and businesses would have to pay, more taxes up front in that first year, but things would, even out then as you move forward. So.
And if this is approved, when would this new process for taxing
So
will that happen?
This is for next year's property tax levy, so what we would levy in July of 2022, and then in December of 2022.
Can I make a clarification? This is not new, right?
Correct, this is not new.
Yeah, this is
Each
not-
year, we have to ask for your approval, issue this resolution, and then we send it to our 3 municipalities.
Right.
And they levy those taxes for
So
us.
just to clarify, we're keeping our taxes the same. This will
Correct.
not result in any change to any of our
But it's
community.
comminated into one payment as opposed to 2?
No,
No.
it's,
Then I don't understand.
Yeah, so you receive 2 property tax bills during the year. And so if you were to find Farmington's or the school district levy, you would see half of it levied in the summer and then half of the taxes in the winter.
Yes.
Just to split that up so it's not all collected, in one property tax bill. So, and this is how we've always levied our property taxes. So this isn't a change at all.
it's not a change. We're just required to annually vote on this being our process that we're going to issue in 2 levies.
Okay.
Yep, so we're keeping it the same. We just need to vote on it every year.
Okay, it's just when the vote is happening.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Kaminsky.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Delgado, oh, no, I'm sorry. We have Mr. Rich for our final discussion item, which is on policy.
Yeah, so it's that first reading of the remote work policy that has been proposed for under 4003 for the policy manual. So it would be remote work unless the remote work request has been approved by the building and/or district administrator. The school district expects all employees to work on-site and in person. The superintendent will promulgate administrative regulations consistent with this policy. One thing that was initially not in there when brought to the district by Miller Johnson was or district administrator, because it's not necessarily just about teachers. It can also be regarding counselors or other members of our administration staff, or just anyone who isn't directly under a building administrator. And so we wanted to make sure that we had all of that covered in the policy, and now it's Dr. Delgado, it would be Dr. Delgado's role to work on the administrative regulation language as to how the district would put this into effect.
Thank you. So just so that board members understand, this is a recommended update from our legal counsel, correct? That was reviewed by our policy committee. This would come to us, it's coming to us today for review, and then would come to us at our next meeting for approval. Mrs. Heinrich.
Yeah, just a question. So right now, we don't have a policy on remote work, is that correct? And so we're inserting one in, and this is a result of our experience in the last year.
Right.
Where we worked remotely.
Right.
Okay, so it's a new policy, and so it's just addressing changing times and needs of our school district.
Correct. And this was brought to us by Miller Johnson, who had brought this forward just due to other districts as well expressing that interest in having an actual policy on remote working.
Okay.
Mrs. Fox, did you have a question?
Oh, no.
Oh, no,
I think
okay.
Dr. Delgado.
Dr. Delgado?
Just to share a little bit of feedback to kind of frame this is, in the last couple of years, school districts all across the country have recognized some efficiencies of scale with online meetings and some remote work. And as Dr. Blau mentioned, there are now opportunities possibly legislatively to look at being innovative and possibly entertaining hybrid models. And so many of the law firms have recommended that policy updates happen where it gives schools some anticipated flexibility, not just for their instructional staff, but some of the central office or your departmental leaders who might be able to still maintain meetings or have efficiency in a hybrid or a remote work. But we need a policy to govern that. So we were comfortable with the recommendation from Miller Johnson in this verbiage that might eventually be adopted by you.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on to our next item? Seeing none, we will now move into public comment. This is the public comment portion of our meeting. If anyone has public comment, please take a card from the back table and place it into the bin. Thank you, Mrs. Buckley, for checking our overflow room. Would you guys mind sending me that card that was just put in there? Going to ask our student to come up in recognition of the fact that she's a student. Let's get her up and back home to take care of that homework. Welcome, Savannah Thomas. Thank you for coming today. You have 3 minutes. The way the public comment works is that every person has 3 minutes to express their opinion. We will listen. The board typically does not respond to comments, but we're hearing you, we're listening to you. Thank you.
Just watch me.
Okay. Does it start now?
Yes, and please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Savannah Thomas. I am a junior at North Farmington High School. I've lived in Farmington Hills basically my whole life. I'm here today to express my concern for I'm here today to express my concern for the fights that are going on in my school and like the punishment that needs to be in place. So recently at North Farmington High School, I'd say 2 weeks ago we had 4 fights in literally one day, which was insane, and I've never experienced that in my life. And the tension in my school is just crazy high. I mean, the kids don't respect the teachers. They're vaping in the bathrooms. It's awful. And I've talked to a lot of my teachers about what they should do, what, us as students can do to create a better environment. And the teachers have said we need stricter punishment. They said there's no punishment for tardies anymore, and many kids are showing up to class on their own time. They'll show up 20 minutes late, 10 minutes late. Some kids will show up 5 minutes before class ends. It's awful. Along with that, in regards to fighting, a lot of kids just get suspended. They don't get, any other form of punishment. And when they get, they get home suspensions. So a lot of kids just look at it as a 2-day weekend. They'll go home, watch some Netflix, come back, it's awful. No one's taking the punishment seriously. And with that being said, they just come back and fight more. And considering that my family owns a house here in Farmington, so it means they've invested in the school district, they've invested in the area. I want their investment to, be worth something. So with that being said, I just want the school board to be aware of what's going on, and I want you guys to assess it. A lot of my teachers have brought up bringing back in-school suspensions. So I want you guys to consider that, along with punishments for being tardy and bringing back detention also, because that has been apparently abolished. So that is it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The next comment we have is from Lindsay Ensley. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good
First of
evening.
all, I just want to say to this wonderful young woman, she was so brave. And thank you for standing up for your fellow students. That's wonderful. So I live here in Farmington Hills, and I heard as I was listening a comment on the vaccinations, and I just wanted to offer, I'm connected to a lot of medical resources, and if you have questions or want more information about the effects of the vaccine, the potential dangers to children, especially since children aren't carriers of COVID, I would like to offer connection to those resources to this board, so for parents, for students, for you, so people are aware of the impacts of the vaccine and also the potential dangers of it. So if you would love that, I would love to be that resource for this board if you have questions about that. I also just wanted to offer, when she was talking about the fighting, I was thinking about personal responsibility. And I am actually a part of a program helping young adults with building the structures of personal responsibility through a coaching system. And it's awesome to watch them set goals and actually achieve their goals. And if also that's something you're interested in as part of your community, I would like to offer that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bill Lubaway, and after that we have A. Valden, or Valder, apologies for the mispronunciation.
My name is Bill Upaway. You already announced that. A couple of meetings ago, I spoke about the tyranny of critical race theory, which has been embedded in Farmington schools and announced in the 2020 board resolution. And I brought this along. This is CRT. And I was sternly lectured here that Farmington wasn't following CRT, and in any event, it wasn't in the curriculum, and it isn't being taught. And I've read everything I can, looked at what I can, and it is being taught. Maybe surreptitiously, but it's being taught. And that gives rise to this. So then I watched the board's special meeting about the proclamation. Sprinkled in the minutes were several mentions of DEI, which was not defined therein. And as I studied it, DEI is CRT by a different name. And I think it means divide, enslave, intrude. My research shows it indicates that it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. But this is just CRT by another name. And it's like asking you to believe that this is a cute little bunny. It's the same thing. And that certainly doesn't come across. And at least at the board meeting, the board did not ratify its 2020 proclamation, which seeks to divide people by race. And I think it violates some very basic tenets. And I would start off, well, I will ignore that. What has happened is that shifted now to equity is our current story. And the fact of the matter is that equity is the same thing as calling this a cute little puppy dog. It's still CRT. And as a matter of fact, Farmington Schools has already begun pushing equity by having a 21-day equity challenge, which is straight out of this critical race theory playbook. And where I come out basically is, when all the dust settles, when is this board going to get serious about education instead of trying to change our community?
Thank you. A. Valden, followed by David. I know your last name, but you did not, your writings. I need help.
I think someone needed help with my writing too, because it's Valden, Elisa Valden is my name, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was kind of scribble scratching, so no worries. Thank you for letting me address you all tonight. I appreciate it. I want to support our young student here for speaking up and bringing ideas and suggestions with her concerns. That's awesome. And thank you, sir, for what you shared with us tonight. I think it's very important that we have that discussion as a community, because it's just very important, and I'd love to discuss that more. But the reason I'm here tonight is to talk about masks specifically. I'm even more concerned now that we're talking about vaccinations and OSHA regulations. It's getting out of control. The gentlemen that were here earlier with their T-shirts, I couldn't understand what they were saying. Couldn't understand one word they said. Because of this. They were talking like this the whole time. Okay, it's very sad. My concern is, what are people missing in school? What are they missing from their teachers? I'm also very concerned with regard to mental health. I want to know when Farmington Public Schools is going to allow parents to make decisions for their students and stop the trauma, because the masks are traumatizing children. We see evidence in that with increased mental health hospital runs. Hospitals are overrun. The People are having to go to regular medical hospitals now instead of mental health supports that are usually available for them because the levels of need are so high right now. We also are seeing an increase in stress responses. We're seeing an increase in trauma responses. And quite frankly, we're seeing an increase in fighting, right? North Farmington Public School or high school is having an increase in fighting. What do we think that could be the reason for that? Maybe it's this. Maybe our kids aren't getting oxygen. Maybe our kids can't see each other's facial expressions and are taking things incorrectly. Maybe they're traumatized. Maybe they're just tired of not being able to breathe. Maybe it's stressful for them. We're seeing these things go up, and it's very dangerous. With regard to the vaccinations, I support every individual that works for this district and every student to decline. The vaccinations are not legally approved. They're experimental. They're dangerous. We don't know the outcome. We don't know the outcome for children. It's not normal to talk like this. It's not acceptable. And quite frankly, I believe it's a charade. I also believe it's child abuse. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. David, and then Ms. Dawn Thomas. Mr. David, thank you.
Thank you. When last I was here, I asked for you to send evidence that CRT has been taught in the Farmington Hills Public Schools from other people in the community. But what did we get instead? We got theatrics. But that's okay. I like theater. I'm a fan of the arts. So let's talk of a tale of the good old days when black people were discriminated against in the Constitution. Yeah, let's talk about the days when people used to think that there were only 4 elements, when we know that there's hydrogen, argon, and cesium. Let's talk about the days when people were so ignorant that we didn't know how to treat diseases and we thought it was caused by bad spirits. But what's that going to do for our kids? We're going to fail. Our children are going to fail in math, science, history, and social studies. So I understand that some people have trouble getting their facts right. And instead, they want to show analogies and fabricate wordplay. But this is what you should do instead. Take your butt down 275 and make a right on M14 and go down to the School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan. When you get there, tell them who you are, because you guys are all so important that you make up these fabrications about masks, about CRT, and so forth, and see if they can give you the evidence that you apparently have to justify your fabrications.
Mr. David?
Yes.
Would you please address the board?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Seeing as how when you get there you won't get any, come back here and apologize. Apologize to the board and apologize to me, as well as other people in the community, for fabricating these lies. CRT is not taught in Farmington Hills. It can't be taught because the children are too young to understand the concepts. Saying that race and equality and racism is an issue in this society is not CRT. It's just teaching the reality that some people go through, like myself. I was racially abused in school. I was mistreated because there was no provision for children to be taught at that time how to respect each other without racist hate. Thank God and thank you guys for making sure that we don't have that problem perpetuated in the school system. But seeing as how some people just can't seem to get their magic dragons out of their head, you need to go down to the public policy school at the University of Michigan and get your facts straight. And in addition, as far as mask mandates and the vaccine goes, I'd say about 5,000 lives have been saved in Michigan because of those mandates. And probably about 100,000 people have been prevented from getting COVID. What about the health and mental well-being of those people?
Thank you. Dawn Thomas is next, and that will be followed by Beth Hewlett.
Hello, thank you for hearing my concerns. And I'm going to thank the gentleman because I guess I don't have to talk about CRT because he did it, so thank you. But I did want to talk about the mask mandate. My daughter is a fifth grader at Wood Creek Elementary, and she has asthma. I'm also a Girl Scout leader. We have 9 girls in our troop. One girl, her parents did not want her to wear a mask, and she was the one that came down with COVID. It scared me, and it scared my whole troop, because she has asthma, and I know that everyone, the First Amendment rights, everyone can do what they please. However, you're affecting other people's kids. You can say, I'm sorry if something happens to her because she has asthma. She has a compromised immune system. So the minute she gets COVID, it's not just a cough and she has a runny nose. She has a lung issue. And it frightens me to think that there are people out in this world, first of all, calling this child abuse, I think this is keeping her safe. She's been around a bubble of people since COVID began, and my whole family, none of us have gotten COVID because we all wear masks, and we keep ourselves safe. Child abuse to me would be for me not to have her wear a mask and be around people who are thinking this is, not a realistic pandemic we're in. And just long story short, I appreciate the mask mandate because it's keeping her safe. Everyone can say, oh, I'm sorry, you have my condolences if something happens to her, but this is keeping her safe. So I am 100% for it. For those of you who do not want to do a mask mandate, who don't want to wear a mask, please do testing. At least do that to make sure that you don't have it, because COVID is a serious thing. We know several people in our family who have come down with it. One person was on a ventilator and almost died because of it. It's not a hoax. It's not a myth. This is a real pandemic that we're in, and I hope that we take this seriously.
Thank you.
If it's okay.
If we could.
Oh, sorry. If it's okay, can I use my mom's time?
No, I'm sorry, apologies. We actually, did she speak already?
She spoke regarding the fight.
I didn't go over my 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
The bell didn't go off.
Oh, okay.
Then I just want to say, in regards to the comment about wearing a mask, you wear it in respect of others. The same reason why before you start driving, you go to driver's training school, or at the very least you practice. Yeah, in the very least you practice driving. It's because you don't want to hurt others on the road. Wearing a mask is about respect for others. So although we do all have, God bless you, our own independent rights, and of course that's true. But like I said, it's about respect for others. It's not, based off of just your own actions. So that's it.
Thank you.
Can she say one quick comment?
I didn't have anything to say.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Hewlett, and followed by Kelly Goldberg. This is the last public comment card that I have, so if anyone else wants to make public comment, please fill out a card. Mrs. Hewlett, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My public comment tonight is on my own behalf. I am not speaking for any organization. Critical race theory, it is so important to clarify. This is not a curriculum. Teaching young people about race and racism in school is not synonymous with teaching critical race theory. Our children deserve an accurate and fair history lesson in our public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Goldberg. Mrs. Goldberg?
Good evening. First, I want to thank you for following science and teaching our kids to follow science and supporting our families in following public health mandates to wear masks and not expose ourselves to aerosols from a very, very harmful virus. I want to point out that in the Johns Hopkins data as of yesterday, Michigan still has a positive test rate of 11.7%. That's higher than it's been at some points because the Delta variant is so much more contagious than the original coronavirus was. I keep coming up here and talking about what I know my kids have learned in college and what they've needed to succeed as adults. They continue to benefit from having been taught real history, warts and all, about what African Americans and other minorities are still enduring by way of discrimination every day, about police brutality, about disparate discipline practices. This is not critical race theory. This is just what is. And I will say a certain political party seems to have seized on fear-mongering and trying to destabilize our local governments in the guise of, oh, your freedoms are being taken away, oh, your children are being taught bad things and made to feel guilty. The children I know are very concerned about their peers. People said this when we had to go peanut-free. Oh, it's going to traumatize the kids. The children were the ones leading the charge. They wanted their peers to be safe. Children do not want to be part of someone's ill health. The problem is we adults. If we adults accept things and act mature and like it's not a big deal, our children will follow suit. So I just want to thank you for standing strong in the face of these winds, and I'd like people to contemplate a little bit who benefits from all this chaos. In Grosse Pointe, the people asking for no masks anymore didn't even have kids in the district. You have to ask yourself, who will benefit by the destabilization and chaos in our communities? Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any more public comment cards, so at this time, I'm asking for any more public comment. Seeing no further public comment, we will now close the public comment period, and we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is action items. We have one action item tonight, and that is related to bid pack 4. Mrs. Heinrich.
Excuse me, yes. I move that the Board of Education award bid pack number 4 for Hillside, Longacre, Wood Creek, and East Middle School, site work only, as outlined in the November 9, 2021 letters from Plant Moran Cressa and McCarthy Smith in the amount of $7,335,026, funds to come from the Capital Projects Building and Site 2020 Fund.
Support. Motion made by Mrs. Heinrich, supported by Mrs. Smith, to award bid pack number 4 for Hillside, Longacre, Wood Creek, and East Middle School, as outlined in our packet. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Mrs. Smith, can we have a roll call on this item?
Yes. Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich?
Yes.
Dr. Blau?
Yes.
I myself, yes. Mr. Rich?
Yes.
And Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. And we will now move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Rich?
Thank you. I move that the Board of Education approve the November 9th, 2021 consent agenda as follows. A, approval of minutes. That's for the October 26th, 2021 committee meeting and regular meeting. And B, Oakland School Special Education Parent Advisory Committee appointees.
Support. Motion made by Mr. Rich, supported by Mrs. Smith, to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is reports from board representatives. Do we have any? Mrs. Heinrich.
Yes, I have a report from the Oakland County School Board Association DEI committee meeting, which met virtually on October 27th, 2021. The committee is an ad hoc committee formed by Oakland Schools Board Association. And so they had some leadership changes as far as the co-chairs of the committee. The new co-chairs are going to be Connie Williams of Oakland Schools and Michael Frank from Clawson. And then Menachem Hoda is the chair of the committee from Oak Park. He's going to continue on that. There was some feedback from the Oakland School Board Association Board of Directors requested to review and update the mission, vision, and goals. And so there was a discussion on that, which was quite long. And the first goal was revised. And it now reads, to build understanding of what DEI means in K-12 education and define the barriers that exist to DEI in Oakland County Public Schools. There's 2 more goals and they did not get to those, and so they will be an ongoing discussion for that. And they also talked about measuring the goals as far as they're not really SMART goals to be measured, and they're more subjective and qualitative in that. But that is pretty much it. The next meeting is going to be on November 10th.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Heinrich. Any other reports? Seeing none. Any recommendations for future agenda items? Seeing none. Good and welfare. Mrs. Smith?
I will be, well, first I'd like to say, hope everybody had a safe Halloween, and several of myself and several of my colleagues will be attending the convention. I leave tomorrow, and we'll be back Sunday for Michigan School Board Association. It is so important to get that education, to know what your rights are and what you can do and what you cannot do as a school board member. It's no different from being a doctor or an attorney. When you go to a doctor, you want to see a surgeon, you don't want him to be the doctor that works on your feet. You want him to be able to be that heart specialist. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Looking forward to coming back and doing some more things. But under good and welfare, I'd like to say some things. I was a little bothered when I saw the dragon this evening. It was offensive to me as a woman of color, because what you're pretty much saying is that was a representation of people of color that just want things to be taught to students. A minority woman myself, I am Native American, Latino, and African American, and my grandfather was an Irishman. Don't ask me how that all happened, but it did. But at the end of the day, I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of everyone that I represent. I'm the mother of 2 daughters that are married to Caucasian men, and I'm a mother of a full-blown lesbian. But for someone to bring and place a dragon before me and my colleagues, it was an insult. Because what it is showing me is that's what you feel, and that is what your thoughts are of people that don't look and represent others. Critical race theory is not being taught here. Not at all. DEI is an equity to teach our students not to hurt anyone. If this was to hurt people that didn't look like me or my son-in-laws, I would definitely would not want this in our schools. I want what's right for all children, whether they look like me or they don't. But I am so tired of us being accused of teaching things that we are not teaching in this district. We are a loving district. We love our children, and we love what we are doing. We have a superintendent that's doing a phenomenal job. We have assistant superintendents that are going over and beyond. And I know we should not respond to public comments, but I'm doing it under good and welfare. But I want to say tonight, out of all the times that I have sat at this table, that was the most disturbing and hurting thing that I have ever dealt with in this community. The censor was nothing, but to have a dragon to represent minorities was very hurtful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. I have a few good and welfare items. The first is several plays that have been going on. My daughter was able to attend the STEAM play that was virtually ever after, a really clever play put on by students where there was one prince who was dating all of the princesses. It was actually hilarious. Yeah, really cute. What I'm really glad about is all of the theater that is happening over the past couple of weeks in just a few short months. I recall what you said earlier today, Dr. Delgado, about how important extracurricular activities are for kids, especially in this environment. And I'm so proud that we are keeping that up in this environment when a lot of districts are not able to. So thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to mention was the Toast to Education. I think you mentioned that as well. Was able to participate in that and want to thank everyone who made that a success. It was a little different this year, but it was really fun. Very, very well done. The MASB conference is coming up. Several of us are doing that, and I want to again thank the board and just remind the community that our board members spend a lot of time of their own time. Clearly, all of the time that board members spend is of their own time and is not compensated, but especially around the MASB conferences when you're talking about taking off, 3, 4, 5 days to educate yourself to become a better board member. So I want to commend all of our board members for doing that and commend all of our board members for pursuing that certification and getting us certified by the end of the year. And then finally, I want to thank all of our central office staff, our staff in general across the district, but particularly our central office staff. Our board sees you. We've noticed that you've been attending board meetings on your own time, in the evenings, that you've been participating in all of these strategic planning discussions in the evenings in order to accommodate parents and community members who don't have time during the day because they're working, as are you. I appreciate all of you who are taking on this DEI challenge, the 21-day equity challenge. It's really important to us. I see that it is important to many of our staff, and we appreciate it. I'm learning so much. I'm learning about how across lots of different areas, across race, across different countries, across differences in, male, female, all kinds of areas where we have assumptions. And it's so important to bring awareness to those as we develop and cultivate relationships with our students, with our staff, with each other in our community. So I wanted to commend you for that. I appreciate that I'm learning so much about different perspectives and how to have conversations about those differences and perspectives and have disagreements without being disagreeable. I appreciate all of that. So I hope that we can do more. Thank you all. If there are no more good and welfare, we stand adjourned. Thanks.